Beware of spoilers, you have been warned.
Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan was one of the great animes I studied during my great anime of summer in 2016 when I literally spent 3 months exposing myself to my first animes and studying what the internet claimed was best at the time. I only got through season 1 of Attack on Titan. I believe there are only 2 seasons at the time, and I decided to put a pin on it and wait for the whole series to be done, which took several years. So here I am finally after watching all seasons, and I'll tell you, it was totally worth the wait. So I remembered season 1 just being everyone flying around and getting eaten by titans, and yeah, second watch through, that's what it is. It is what it is. Misaka and Potato Girl and Levi were my favorites 9 years ago, and they were my favorites now. And for some reason, I remember it being Armin that can change into a Titan. I mean, I was right eventually, but not sure how that mix-up happened in my head. This show is brutal, so if you can get through the first season, you're all set for the series. It's emotionally damaging because people are just dying all the time and everyone is depressed about it all the time and there's just no hope and only despair. But this is where the main squad comes in. Eren, Armin, and Misaka believe in each other so much and carry their nation's hope and dreams on their shoulders, while all others are fighting because what else is there to do, honestly? Keep fighting. That's it. That's Attack on Titan. At least until the plot starts. As I've said, what you see is what you get. It seems like the show is humans versus titans for the longest time. Then the Beast Titan shows up and it's over, bro. Like, I'm awake. You caught my attention. Things are getting real now. This is also when I started getting more attached to characters. Like, I at least started learning names outside of the core trio and Levi. Connie, Jean, and Sasha are the golden trio that survives longer than I ever thought. Like, they basically make it to the end, and I love them. Season 4 doesn't count. Okay, shut up. Hanji, OMG, I love her and her little science bro right-hand man. If I have named a character at all so far, commit those characters to memory as the only characters I care about. However, you must know Season 2 does such a fantastic job expanding on the side characters and making them feel more like characters rather than disposable NPCs. Even so, if you were to tell me the names of the infiltrating outsiders and which Titan they can transform to, I'd be like, who? Like, when they found out who the Colossal Titan was, they were all like, OMG, he was our friend, and I was like, who the F are you talking about, bro? Even when I looked him up and saw pictures, I was like, who dis be? Nevertheless, the concept of these mysterious Titan variants and their human counterparts was still mind-boggling, because it was about this time that I really started to ponder, wait, what even is the Colossal Titan? We've now seen a few variants now, including the talking gorilla one, so season 2 is when I really started to care about what was happening, and I was obsessed by the end of the season. Like, Eren can command who now? Like, what the F are the Titans? What is going on? That reminds me of Connie's mom. Like, I remembered at some point, I thought, they're just people, bro. But even as that was eventually confirmed, I swear it took me until season 4 to have an aha moment about what happened to the village. This is my opportunity to recommend watching the show twice. First, for the shocks and twists and turns, and the second, to truly appreciate the storytelling. I've done this with other shows, and given the massive scope of Attack on Titan, I just know my second watch through someday will be mind-blowing for different reasons. Alright, season 3. It quite literally leads up to this. At least that's how I feel. Season 3, we got exposition, people. Pretty much most of the series' mysteries are solved with this season, as the final season focuses more on the world war. We got political corruption, we got royal family conspiracies, we got flashbacks to a whole other continent? What? This is also the season I was most emotionally invested in. That huge battle with the Beast Titan, Armin basically dies, Captain Erwin dies, and I'm just sobbing for episodes. When it came down to Levi deciding who to save by turning them into the Colossal Titan, obviously my vote was always going to be Armin, but I felt so conflicted about it anyways. I feel like in other scenarios similar to this, I'm pretty clear on who the unfortunate sacrifice should be, but for Armin versus the Captain, that was a valid debate. Look, I'm not here to analyze or break down the entire story. That's just not what I made the podcast for. I'm just here to give my general experience, and sometimes that might include analysis. But Attack on Titan is massive, and there are plenty of others that brutally dissect the series and manga as it rightfully deserves, and I totally recommend their videos. I'm just here to tell you how awesome the anime was. Season 3 was probably my favorite season. Just everything came full circle. Of course, this is true for many characters, but it particularly hits hardest with the main trio. First of all, it seems like since the very first episode, Eren has been trying to get to that damn basement. And it took them 3 seasons to get here. If you were to ask me what the plot of this series is, I'd say, oh, a bunch of people die fighting monsters as this kid tries to get to his father's secret basement. That's it. That's the show. But what this basement reveals, I felt like it was a fever dream. I texted my sister, who watched the anime as it aired, basically statements like, what the F and what am I watching? My mind was blown, but I could not stop, so I never gave myself a moment to let it all sink in, so I was so overwhelmed and overstimulated, like, they've just been sitting on this lore for years. While this foreign continent and the concept of a much bigger world outside the walls, while this concept throws you right into season 4, I don't think I could bring myself to watch season 4 again. Since season 1, Armin has been keeping himself alive with the dream that he can find the ocean with his friends, and this was the dream that Eren fought for when he wanted to make Armin the Colossal. When they get there, that's it. That's my conclusion. Even with everything on the literal horizon, a whole other season, a whole war, the best anime intro, these final moments on the beach are what it was all for. So no matter how many times I come back to this anime, season 3 is my ending. That being said, season 4 is crazy AF and you should watch it at least once. But my potato girl dies in like the first episode. F that! And Hanji dies later, which I've always said, if she were to die, I hope it's a bloodthirsty titan is the last thing that she sees. But alas, not a fan of her death at all, like, she could have made it. Even if I won't watch it again, it's a solid finale season. Attack on Titan has been a story of humanity, hope and despair, and has now shifted to a huge complex tale of war and consequences. Cruelty of man transcends all fiction. This season we see the concepts of government corruption to its highest degree, spread of false information, anti-Semitism and racism represented through the treatment against the Eldian people, the blame and dehumanization of people solely based on their country, government, or even ancestors. Remember who the real enemy is, bro. I hate Gabby, but her character represents some of the most important concepts. Actually, a lot of the concepts that I just mentioned can be really seen through Gabby. Even as part of the antagonized race, she is brainwashed into loving her country and eventually realizes all she had been told was a lie. This bleeds into the overall series theme of anti-nationalism. We've watched the scouts for over 3 seasons fight for the love of their country, but so much death and horror came from that. Heroically dying for your country is not a glamorous thing, and you have to wonder if it's worth it. Eren is a slave to the cruel world that man has made, not Titans. I was off my chair when Eren committed genocide, not that I condone such an act, but it was necessary for Marley to know what monsters they've literally created. And as epic and terrifying as the rumbling was, that was just too far, and Aaron had to be stopped. In the end, all were unified against the final boss, Aaron and the rumbling, which basically was the destruction of humanity. It would be the end of the world in reality to be the only thing to unify the planet. Even with all the Titans gone, humanity's final boss will always be humanity itself. This was always the main theme through the series, especially in 3 and 4, but this dark truth is clear during the final credits. Centuries will pass and humans will never change. Also, there might have been a Beast Titan, but Levi was the real beast. Never forget. This movie of the week is a double feature. It's time to start from the beginning. To X-Men. The first X-Men movie was a solid start. We are definitely spoiled present day, as I feel like the scale of Marvel movies these days are way above the original X-Men, but that doesn't make the film any less good. We get a nice introduction to characters like Storm, Jean Grey, Rogue, and Charles Xavier. I simply adore that entire cast. Magneto was totally the coolest. A little bonus, going from Deadpool and Wolverine back to the start, seeing Hugh Jackman's first Wolverine appearance is so nostalgic. Not to mention a couple of actors who stuck around for 20 plus years to make eventual cameos in Deadpool 3.
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
I will say, Hugh Jackman had his shirt off 3 times in the first 30 minutes of the movie. I mean, LOL and all that. But again, back to Deadpool. Brother is way more ripped in his 50s than he was here as a spry 30-year-old just fresh off the theater productions. So, yeah. What? X2. Now, way back when I had my first X-Men marathon a few years ago, I just remember enjoying X2 a lot more. Like, it was top 3 for sure, and this still kind of holds. Pacing better, the stakes are higher, bigger budget meant bigger action sequences. There was that moment with Rogue flying out of a plane. Magneto's escape was pretty cool. Did they master Nightcrawler? Because I definitely feel like they did. I don't know, X2 is just such a solid superhero movie, and it rolls right into the Wolverine Origins film perfectly. Which, okay, there's a reason I say this was a double feature. I accept Jean's sacrifice as an official ending in my own headcanon because they just haven't gotten the character right. I'd say go watch X-Men, X2, and just jump straight into Wolverine Origins instead of sitting through The Last Stand again. You see the Phoenix, just accept the tease that Jean could be alive and move on. I went ahead, skipped Last Stand, watched First Class and Days of Future Past. My opinion still stood afterward. Like, in this headcanon I created, whatever Sentinel Apocalypse was happening was in a totally different timeline, whereas X-Men, X2, Wolverine Origins, and First Class were all part of the Sacred Timeline. The Sacred Timeline, the MCU that takes place in. The rest of the franchise just doesn't happen, and Logan and the Deadpool films are so out of the way anyways, you can ignore the story inconsistencies that they bring up. So if you're having a Marvel marathon and want to include X-Men, go ahead and just watch the ones that I mentioned and ignore everything else. And I don't care if Marvel fans see my canon as false, because I just want to enjoy my time, and this is how I'm doing it. Final Fantasy 15. Before I really get into it, let's talk about how this game defined what development hell is. I don't know all the details, but I know this game was 10 years in the making. Tetsuya Nomura had a vision, and for some reason Square Enix did not see it come to pass. Nomura's Versus 13 story would be adapted into what would become Final Fantasy 15. Nomura was no longer the lead creative director anymore, so in 2016 we got this overhyped Final Fantasy game and just didn't satisfy Final Fantasy fans, And a few years later, the original Versus 13 would become integrated into the Kingdom Hearts franchise. That last statement was an educated guess, but I mean, Yozora's car scene was a frame-by-frame copy of a Versus 13 Noctis trailer. Nomura and Square can deny that Yozora is not Nomura's Versus 13 revenge, but Kingdom Hearts fans know better, and we ain't even mad about it. The legacy of the original Final Fantasy Versus 13 still clings on to mainstream, both in the very core of what Final Fantasy 15 became, and also deeply integrated into what Kingdom Hearts will become. Even after almost 20 years, Nomura has a story to tell, and with his future retirement confirmed, I don't think he will rest until his story is finished. And my body is ready. That being said, during the 10 years of development and trailers and announcements, was the game overhyped? Sure, but I still watched the anime. I think that's what created such a negative filter around the game, as people were expecting the next Final Fantasy 7 or 10, and what we got just wasn't up to that same standard, but by no means does that make the game bad. I am a personal fan of the boys, Noctis, Gladios, Ignis, and Prompto. The theme of brotherhood is felt from the very intro of the game. I only watched the anime once in 2015, but I'm pretty sure that was also the whole reason they made the anime to begin with. These four are brothers on a journey, and you feel that. No matter how you feel about the game and story, I think it's a universal experience to say that we love the boys, and all their scenes and interactions, and just everything about them. Nomura definitely designed them too, like that edgy emo core. I vibe with that. I honestly couldn't tell you much of the story. After 2 run-throughs, I never committed it to memory. I have seen/played Final Fantasy 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, and 15, and out of all of those, the ones I've retained in my mind and heart are 6, 7, 10, and 12. These are the titles that remain true in my heart. I know the characters, general plot, music. They're just the most memorable for me. Nothing against the other titles, but these are the Final Fantasies I just remember and admire the most. Gameplay, I can vibe with a bit. I've never been the biggest fan of turn-based, so this free roam action is my cup of tea. The Brotherhood vibe is integrated into the gameplay, as the boys are your party members the whole game and have cool team attack abilities. Warp is basically the precursor to Kingdom Hearts 3 Flow Motion, and I'm pleased with this. Final Fantasy 15 is also a good test run for what would eventually become Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and you know, Final Fantasy 7 has done it better. Like, so much better. They learned, I think, Final Fantasy 7 Remake and Final Fantasy 16 took a lot of lessons learned from 15, and that's pretty good. Magic crafting sort of reminds me of the system from Birth by Sleep. I remember using the internet to use recipes to create my favorite spells for my deck. I think the biggest complaint is that you can extort the crafting system here and create OP spells that make the game too easy. I mean, okay, that sort of thing never bothers me. I definitely extorted Balloon Rot and Dream Drop Distance, no shame. I don't care about quests, main or side, though I do enjoy running around, as the world design is by far the strongest aspect of the game. Every location is just breathtaking to look at, and it's just a prime example of the open world game design that has really taken over the gaming industry since this generation. Okay, the music. Blessed be her soul, Yoko Shimomura. She just doesn't miss. What else can I say? This is my favorite Final Fantasy soundtrack, hands down for sure. Also, I love Florence and the Machine. She also just doesn't miss, and her cover of Stand By Me is perfect. I know many of the fan base was split upon the release of this game. Many hated it, and still do, but there's definitely a strong fan base that still very much exists. I think it really lies with the boys. They just tied it all together, and while it was flawed, it was still fun. I still enjoyed it for a bit. Star of the Week is Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis was born in Germany to a German mother and an American father. When his father was discharged from his military position, they moved to America, where Bruce had a fairly normal life. Normal parents with normal jobs and basic childhood 60s America. Bruce was introduced to acting through high school. After graduation, it took several years for Bruce to figure things out. He had odd jobs, from security guard to bartender. He was in college, then he wasn't in college. Like, I feel you, bro. Not every young adult knows what the heck they're doing, or any adult really knows what the heck they're doing. It's called being alive, as Jenna Marbles once said. Bruce got very, very lucky because, yes, winning any audition involves a lot of luck. Or any job, really, involves a lot of luck. When he was cast in the show Moonlighting as the lead role, you may or may not know what I say around here, but being nominated for any prestigious award makes you the best. Winning makes you the best of the best. Bruce Willis won an Emmy and a Golden Globe for his role in Moonlighting in 1987. He is the best of the best. And that is one hell of a way to start a 35-year career. This dude was on a roll because his big start didn't stop there. Fresh off his Emmy win, he portrayed John McClane in Die Hard. Now that I think about it, the main hero was a fairly new actor, and the main villain was a British theater veteran who had never been in a film before. And look at where these two ended up. Anyways, this Die Hard film sparked a whole franchise of films with Bruce Willis starring in all 5 movies, solidifying himself as an action movie icon. Fresh off his stellar entry into Hollywood, Bruce Willis entered the 90s as a somewhat established actor. He fit right in with the iconic and talented cast of Quentin Tarantino's film Pulp Fiction, which is one of the best films Tarantino has ever done. He was the main character, once again playing a hero against a villain portrayed by a Harry Potter actor. I am, of course, referring to The Fifth Element, which I'm pretty sure is a cult classic sci-fi at this point. Bruce co-starred in 12 Monkeys with Brad Pitt and Christopher Plummer. He ended the decade in one of his most iconic roles ever in M. Night Shyamalan's film The Sixth Sense, which is one of the best films Shyamalan has ever done. Some other 90s films included The Last Boy Scout, Nobody's Fool, and The Player. Bruce also won another Emmy for his guest role appearance in Friends. While the rest of his career wasn't filled to the brim with box office hits or critical successes, he was still around. He did plenty of action movies and then some. One of his most notable films at the beginning of the century was Sin City, as well as its later sequel. I've discussed both on this podcast before. Highly recommend watching at least the first one at least once. He followed the director when he starred in Planet Terror and the Planet Terror segment of the movie Grindhouse. He was also in Shyamalan's film Unbreakable immediately following their Sixth Sense success. In what would become his final acting years, Bruce managed to be a part of some last-minute low-key bangers. He was in Wes Anderson's Moonrise Kingdom. He co-starred in the first 2 Expendable films with the likes of Sylvester Stallone, Jason Statham, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. He also starred in the 2 Red movies alongside Morgan Freeman, John Malkovich, and Helen Mirren. Some of his other final films included Looper, Fire with Fire, and a handful of low-budget action films that didn't really do well. He also dabbled with some stage work when he starred in the Broadway play production of Misery. That was pretty cool. Even though Bruce Willis has retired due to a form of dementia, he left behind quite the career and legacy. I hope he is living comfortably, surrounded by family in these difficult times. We miss you, bro.
That's it for this week. Be sure to follow this podcast and please follow my Twitter and blog at Hollis Films to follow my journey experiencing the entertainment industry's greatest stories. And let me know what you've been fangirling over this week. Thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you again next week.